Hello and welcome to Castle for One Games. I am George Castle, and today I'll be playing Men-Nefer, designed by Herman Milan and artist by Laura Bevon. This is a 1 to 4 player game, but today I'll be providing a playthrough of the official solo mode against a simulated opponent by the name of Imhotep, the first architect and engineer during the 3rd dynasty. This will be the first of a 2-part video to get you started in playing this fantastic game. So, let's rock. Alright, welcome to 3100 BC in Men-Nefer Egypt. And I'm filming during the day, so at first it's going to look a little bit bright, but once I get started on the playthrough, it should be a little bit darker, and I'll pull out my lamp and we'll see how much better it gets. But it's a long game, and I wanted to at least get an early start for filming this for all of you that are interested in watching the solo mode played. So first, I did want to focus on the setup. Right, so as you can tell, everything is set up the same as the 2-player mode, with some exceptions. Now, as for the player boards, both the bot, or Imhotep, and the player's board are set up the same, except that the bot doesn't need any fish or heka, because he doesn't spend or earn any during the game. We start with 3 fish, because we are in 2nd place. Alright, let's see what else. We have our 3 tiles. 1, 2, 3. Same thing for the bot. Now, as for these mummies, they are meant to be stacked, but I tend to knock them over, so I've kind of separated them into 2 different stacks. Same thing for these pyramid pieces. So I'm stacking them only for the purpose of this video, but normally I'll just lay them down face down. So everything else is pretty much the same. Of course, this is the solo side of the board. And as you can tell, there's only 2 contracts per city down here. And there's only 1 here. And this is typical setup for the solo mode and a 2-player game. And of course, you'll notice that you have these hammers for building. Now, on the other side of the board, you would need to cover this hammer with this tile. Now, for the solo side, it's already there, so you don't need to worry about it. Also, for 2-player and solo mode, you will have to place these neutral apprentice made of gold. The neutral apprentice meeples are placed according to a placement tile that is randomly selected. And at the end of the era, they're going to move down 1. But this is the initial setup based on this tile. As for the Queen's pyramid pieces, they do start with 2 of them. So you have the 1 piece here. And just place it on here. And then you'll have these that will be added. Now, you have your bot action tiles that you're going to be using for the solo mode. So we just shuffle these up and set them on a draw pile to the side of the board. And every time you draw them, you follow the actions per tile. It also has a die, but we'll talk a little bit more about that during the gameplay. So that's the setup for the solo mode. There is no other changes for this setup. So let's go ahead and get started with a playthrough, and I'm sure it'll get dark by the time we start playing, but I'll make sure to have better lighting by then. Alright, so the bot will go first, as indicated. So the first thing we need to do is flip the first solo action tile from the draw pile. Alright, so its first move is going to be to obtain a tablet. However, he's got all his tablets already on his board, so he's going to have to take a different kind of action. So what we do in this case is, if he can't play that tile, then we'll flip it over and place it at the bottom of the draw pile. Alright, and now we flip over the new one. And again, it's wanting to move one of its apprentices from the sun to the moon side in the House of Life. However, all of his apprentices are still here. He hasn't moved anything to the House of Life. So we'll just have to flip it over and just place it underneath the draw pile again. And let's see if we can get an actual move going this time. And there we go. There's the first move. So now this means that he's going to select an apprentice furthest to the left. So this one right here. So then we just grab this apprentice and we're going to place it on one of the spaces in the House of Life. All right, let me go ahead and lay these neutral apprentice down, it'll make it a little bit easier to see things. All right, the first thing he's going to want to do is place his apprentice on a space where one of my own meeples is already on. But because none of my apprentices are out on any of the spaces right now, then he's going to select the topmost space. In this case, it would be the one right here. And now, if I want to place one of my apprentices on the space, it's going to cost me 2 fish. All right, now he's going to play the action tile. So he's going to do the boat action and 1 activation. And then he's going to perform an embalm action. So let's go ahead and do the boat action first. And we said it was 1 move, and he's always going to want to end up in a city as his first priority. And he always wants to go with the furthest boat out. So his first move is going to go to this city. And then the next thing he's going to do is activate it. So when he activates, he will get to take a contract and perform a city benefit token. So when he takes a contract, he's always going to select the one that has the most value. And in this case, you have 2 contracts with a value of 1. So if there's a tie, he's always going to pick the one on the left. In this case, he'll pick this one. And we're going to go ahead and place it at the bottom of his board. Here, to be counted during the harvest phase. All right, the next move is going to be to embalm that mummy. So I'm just going to grab one of his mummies and we're going to flip it over to the active side. And then I'll just place another one on top. And then we're going to grab this tablet and place it into the discard pile of the market. Next, he's going to play this bonus city tile, which allows him to move up the pyramid track. But first, he has to check if he has any available Khufu permissions on his board. And because he doesn't have any, then he's going to move on the Great Pyramid track instead of the Queen's Pyramid track. So in that case, he's going to move his limestone to space number 1. And then don't forget, after activating cities, you do move the boat forward because of this arrow here. And that is the end of his turn. All right, as you can see, the first tile allows me to move my boat 1 movement and 1 activation. And then I can move one of my Sphinx to the active side. The second one allows me to perform an embalm action for my mummy. And then I can move my priestess up 1 space in the temple. Or I can perform a get a craft action. And finally, we have this one, which gives me a papyrus, and it allows me to move my active Sphinx. So you're somewhat limited to the actions that you have on your board based on these starting tiles, but there will still be more action options as we play on, and you will see that here soon. So I kind of want to focus on contracts. So that means I'm going to have to start focusing on getting some more boat actions, because that's mostly where they're going to come from. So I think for my first action, I'm going to go ahead and move one of my boats and carve my first Sphinx. So I'm going to play this one in order to play this action tile. And I'm going to go ahead and place my apprentice on one of these spaces. And if I choose this top one, we're going to have to pay 2 fish. But I would get to move up my pyramid tracks early on. So I could also move to this empty space, which would be free. But when it's time to move my apprentice over to the moon side, it's going to cost me an additional fish. But because I know I'm going to do more contracts, and I need to use my boat to be able to do that, I think I want to make my boat movements a little bit stronger going forward. So that may be the one that I want to focus on, even though it'll cost me 1 fish when it comes time to specialize. And now it's time to play my action from my tile. So first, I'm going to move my boat. So we'll go ahead and just move it up 1. And now I get to activate it. So that means I'm going to go ahead and get 2 fish. And the next action is to go ahead and carve a Sphinx. That means I'm going to move it over to the active side. And then from here on out, I'll be able to go ahead and place this one out onto the board. And now I just need to place this tile over to the discard pile. And that is the end of my turn. All right, it's got a little bit darker now, so I've got to bring out the lamp And hopefully I've aimed it correctly and we don't get too much glare. All right, so it's Imhotep's turn, and we're going to go ahead and flip over the next tile. All right, so it looks like he's going to specialize. So we're going to move an active apprentice on the House of Life from the sun to the moon side. So now we'll move a Scarab along a preferred track, and I'll show you what that looks like. Typically, he will choose to move his apprentice on a row that has a Scarab advanced furthest along the tracks. So he'll move the top one, since it's the only one he has. Now, this immediately allows him to move the Scarab to the next space. And he will be able to move his limestone along the pyramid tracks. And this one is to get a permission from Khufu. All right, so now typically, for a player, we can choose from either this one or this first space. So if mine was all the way here, I could choose this one, or I could take any action from any of these. However, he will only ever activate the one that he's currently on, not this one. So even if he's all the way here, he will only activate this one. So for this one, he's going to get a permission and move along his limestone on one of the spaces in the pyramid tracks. Here's his permission. It is now active to be placed later on. And going forward, anytime Imhotep has a limestone action, he will choose the Queen's Pyramid track. And here's his first move, right there. Next time, if he lands here, he'll construct on a pyramid. All right, now I didn't see anywhere in the solo rulebook that explains which actions Imhotep would prefer to perform first. Now, some of his actions may not matter too much, which order you take them. Others, maybe a bit. But I'm always going to choose what I think would hurt me the most. Now, you can play it differently, and if you see something different or specific in the rule books that would state otherwise, please post a comment below. I would appreciate it. But for now, that's the way I'm going to play it throughout this video. So in this case, he's going to move his permission first, then utilize it so that he can move up the Queen's Pyramid track. And that is the end of Imhotep's turn. All right, now it's back to me. And since I've placed my first action tile, I know I have a couple of more options. So I think I'm going to go ahead and specialize first. All right, let's move my apprentice over to the moon side. And that's going to cost me 1 fish. And now let's move my Scarab over one space and specialize in this area. And now I have more options to move my boat. Either I can move my boat one space and or activate 2 boats, or I can move my boats 2 spaces and only activate once. And I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'll go ahead and move this boat over here. And instead of putting it on top of the roof, I'm just going to put it next to the pier just for more thematic purpose. All right, so that's my first move. And for my second move, so what I'll need to do is move this one here. Since my boat is already in a city, it doesn't count towards that section. So placing my second boat in this section of the river would be a legal move. If they were both in the same section, that you can't do. You can't end your move on a river section that already has one of your boats there. But because one of them is in the city and the other one is in the river, now you can do that. And now I'm going to go ahead and activate this city. And of these 2 contracts, this one requires you to only have 2 boats out on the river. And since I already have my 2 boats out, I will get 1 point automatically by the end of this era. So I think I'm going to go ahead and pick that one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get this reward. Now that I've finished activating my boat in this city, we'll go ahead and move this boat along this arrow to this section here. And that is the end of my turn. All right, it's back to Imhotep, and we'll just perform his next action by flipping his next tile. And this time, it's going to get an action tile back onto his board. And Imhotep always wants a tablet that matches the symbol on his track. If there are no tablets that match that icon, then he will want the tablet that matches my next symbol on my track. And regardless of whichever one he ends up taking, he will always go for the cheapest one. And that helps whenever there's multiple tablets of the same symbol. So remember, he wanted this symbol. So that's the one he's going after. So let's place this back here. And now, the position that he took that tablet was in the second space. So instead of doing the action from the board, Imhotep is going to do the action from his tile instead, which is to move his limestone one space. If he would have taken a tablet from the bottom one, then he would have taken a papyrus. And remember, he's got a permission of Khufu, so that means the limestone he's going to move is going to be the one from the Queen's pyramid track. Now, he's going to move one movement down, and now he's triggering this icon here, which means he's able to place one of his active permissions of Khufu onto one of these objectives here. And he'll also be able to build on that same pyramid. Imhotep would prefer to place one of his permissions onto a site that already has one of his permissions placed. So if I had one of mine here, then that's the one he would choose. If I had one over here and he had to choose between the two, then he would choose the one at the top. But because I don't have any, he's going to go ahead and just choose the top one. And then he's going to choose the top pyramid that corresponds to the next level on that pyramid. I'm still going to be able to place one of them here. I just won't be able to place two of them, which would have given me even more points. And if in a future turn I still don't have any of my pieces placed, he will continue to build on the one that he has a permission already placed. Basically, he will continue to work to completely block me from these objectives. And now we need to bring this down. And let's go ahead and refill the market. And now, because the symbol on this tablet matches the one on the icon that's on his track, he gets to move forward on that space. And because he moved it on top of this one, he gets points immediately. All right, it's back to me. And I'm thinking it's time to go and get that Sphinx out onto the board. And that would be with this action tile, which allows me to get a papyrus and I can erect one of the Sphinx. But where do I want to place my apprentice? I have a couple of options. All right, this would be free, and I can move it to the moon side as long as the AI doesn't try to come after me. And that would give me more Sphinx and craft actions. I could go here and only spend one fish. That'll make my offering a little bit better. But because I go heavy on contracts in this era, I'm going to go ahead and go with this one. And now let's go ahead and perform my action. And the first thing we're going to do is get a papyrus. And the first one is going to be free to place. Now I need to see which one I need because some of these can be expensive. So I could spend to get this one, but I don't have any right now, so I'll just get a free one for now. And I can't rotate it. It has to be the side up. Let's go ahead and place it here. All right, that's free. And you don't get anything right away. You'll get feathers during the harvest period. And now for my next action, I either get to place out a Sphinx out onto the board, or I can move one to the active side of my board, ready for a future turn. And I'm going to go ahead and erect, meaning I'm going to go ahead and place one out onto the board. And now we get to place my Sphinx anywhere on the board. As long as it's on level 1, I'll be able to place it there. So the level 1s are down here at the bottom for each of these sections. So you have 3 different spaces to place them on. And because I'm all about the contracts for this particular objective during this era, I'm going to want to get something like this where I can get fish and more movements out of my boats. So let's go ahead and place it here. And I'm going to get 2 fish. And now I'm at 6. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the boat movement action. And it's 2 movements and 1 activation. Now I could move it twice all the way up to here. and activate 3 more fish. I could go 1, 2 to get into the city and activate it here. Or I could go 1, 2, come into the city. That might actually work better. I kind of like these contracts, although I don't have 3 boats out onto the river or cities yet. Now with this contract, I've already got one of my Sphinx out onto the board. So let's go ahead and go with that one. So there's one movement. My second movement will be to move this one over here. Or we can move it into this city and it'll simply be activated later on. As a matter of fact, let's just leave it here because I'm planning on getting 3 more boats out anyway. So let's go ahead and activate this city and get this contract. Plus, I'll get another feather thanks to the city bonus token. All right, so now we're going to go after this feather thanks to the city tile. And then we're going to go ahead and finish out our action by bringing this boat out here into the river, following this arrow. And again, it's legal because the boat is in this city, and this one is in the river. All right, we went ahead and completed our actions. So we'll go ahead and cover this space so we know that we've done this already. And now that we've finished performing all of the actions, we're going to go ahead and take this tablet back to the discard pile. All right, and that is the end of my turn. All right, it's back to Imhotep. And now let's see what he's going to do with his next turn. All right, it looks like he's going to play out this action tile. But first, he will need to place his apprentice on the House of Life spaces. So the next one will be this one. So let's go ahead and place it. Now, he's always going to prefer a space where one of my meeples is already currently at, and he doesn't have to pay anything. So he's going to go after me, and that's because he doesn't want to be too far behind on these tracks. And now it's time for him to perform his action tile. And now normally players would gain 2 Heka, but Imhotep does not gain any Heka. So he will just go straight to his actions, which is a Funerary Rite action. And if there's a choice in some of these action tiles, he never performs the bottom one. He always chooses the top. All right, since he does have a sarcophagus available, he's going to be able to perform this action. So let's go ahead and place it out into the necropolis area. If you notice, there are numbers all around the outer wall of the necropolis area. So he's going to place his sarcophagus in one of these spaces, depending on the die roll. And this is where the solo die comes into play. Also, what column will depend on what era we are currently at. Since we are in era 1, we will place it somewhere in this column. So now I'm going to go ahead and roll the die to determine which mastaba area he will place his sarcophagus in. All right, it's rolled a little bit off screen, but here we go. He's got the 6. So we go to era 1 column, and we will look for the area number 6. So that would be this one. Now, normally a player will receive Heka and 2 hearts, but Imhotep will just receive the hearts. He doesn't get any Heka. All right, so what I like to do is I like to set him aside just to make sure I remember that I haven't completed his entire action yet, because we do need to give him the hearts. And he doesn't gain any rewards from the Mustaba tile, so you don't have to worry about any of those. So let's go ahead and give him his first heart. And there's his first heart. Actually, he gets 2 of them. And now that he's completed his action on this tile, we're going to go ahead and place it on the discard pile of the market. And that is the end of his turn. All right, it's back to me. And I think I'm going to go ahead and specialize one of my apprentices that I already have out there. So in case he tries to specialize before me, it doesn't cost me more fish. Right now, since there's 2 apprentices, it'll only cost me 3. So we might as well take advantage of it now before it gets too expensive. Now, as you can see, it does get a little crowded, so I would prefer to just stand them up. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to lay them down so it's easier for you to see. So this is going to move my Scarab up 1 space. And this means that I'm going to get 3 boats I can move and only activate 1. Or I can move 1 boat, activate 2. Or I can move 2 boats and activate 1. So let's take a look at my boats. I can move one of these up one, or move this one up one and activate that one. No, I really want this one because this one only requires 5 contracts. I already have 3, so I just need 2 more. But this one just requires 3 boats. So as long as I move one of my boats out from this area, at least up 1 space, I'll be able to meet that requirement. Plus, I'll be able to move up my orb 1 space on the obelisk, which I think it's about time I start doing. Let's go ahead and move this one up 3 spaces, so that way I can get some food during the flood phase. So let's go ahead and activate this one. Wait a minute, if I do this, he's going to come down here, and I'm going to have to take this one backwards. Never mind, let's just do this again. Let's go 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's better. And then activate this one to get this contract and get the orb going. All right, so we'll just add that here. So now we have 3 contracts. And now I'm going to pretty much be able to meet all 3 of these contracts by the end of the era. All right, and thanks to the reward from the city bonus tile, I'll be able to move up one of the obelisk spaces. So now that I've moved up to this space, I'll get 2 hearts. All right, now let's make sure that the boat actually follows this arrow, ends up on this space. All right, and now I need to pay for placing my apprentice into the moon side, since there were 2 apprentices in that space. So that's going to be a cost of 2 fish. And now I'm down to 4. Oh, and I forgot to update my papyrus market, so these need to be moved over. And then we're going to draw a new one from this yellow bag. And we'll go ahead and place one down here. All right, now this one's got that symbol I've been looking for to complete the one drawing that I have. And it only costs 1 hecka. However, it will cost me another hecka just to place it down here on my board. All right, now it's back to Imhotep. All right, it's back to Imhotep. And let's see what his next action is going to be. All right, he's going to place his next apprentice onto the House of Life. All right, so normally he will choose a space where one of my apprentices is already placed. But since I don't have any, he's going to take an empty space of wherever he has the furthest scarab on any one of the tracks. So I made the mistake earlier where I placed it next to a neutral apprentice. I mean, yes, you can do that, but it's actually an empty space that he would prefer first. And because there's 2 spaces that are empty and both of the scarabs are tied for the furthest one, then he'll just take the top one. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and have him play his actions from this tile. And this action tile says that he will perform and obtain a craft action, and then he will move up the pyramid track 2 spaces. Now, when obtaining crafts, Imhotep will always choose the cheapest one. Even though he doesn't have any fish, he just likes to take this cheapest one anyway. Now, you see these symbols right here? He doesn't like taking craft tiles with a symbol that he already has one on his board. He likes to collect unique craft symbols. But since right now he doesn't have any, he'll just take this one. All right, and he's always going to place it in the first empty space, starting from left to right, just like in the regular rules. And then places his basket on top. Now, he always wants to choose the highest level as long as he already has 2 built underneath it. So if he had another one built down here, then the next time he's going to go ahead and just place it on top. So he's always going to start to kind of build on this side, and then he'll start building on this side. So he's performed his first action, and now we'll go ahead and have him perform his second action, which is to move 2 spaces up the Great Pyramid track. Because again, remember, he doesn't have the permissions of Khufu to go through the Queen's Pyramid track. All right, that means he's going to move up 1, 2 spaces. Now he's crossed this threshold, which means he will get a point by the time we get to the flood phase. He also gets to construct. Actually, I just realized he didn't construct when he reached this space. So let's go ahead and give him his first construction since we missed that on the last turn. And the way this works is he will take the top one from the stack. See how there's no other pieces placed on top of this level? Only this one from the top right-hand corner? So what he does is he's going to look for an empty space to build, and he starts counting from the corner one and works his way around clockwise. And the first empty space, that's where he builds. So he'll take the top one, and very carefully, because I've tipped this over many times, we'll go ahead and place it over here. So now he's going to get one heart, and he's going to get a second heart. And now let's go ahead and go to his current action, and that means he's going to move up 2 spaces. And now that he's past this threshold, he's going to gain another point during the harvest phase. He also just crossed another construction space, which means he's going to build another pyramid piece. And again, he'll take the same level 1 and place it on the first empty space that he comes across, starting from the top right corner. And now he's going to get 1 fish and 1 feather. Of course, he ignores the fish, but he'll get the feather. And now that he's finished both actions, he's going to take this back to the discard pile at the tablet market. And that's the end of his turn. Okay, it's back to me. And I'm going to go ahead and play my last tablet. And this one will allow me to get my mummy out to play. So let's send this apprentice out to the House of Life. And I'm going to place it here. And although it will cost me a fish, it's going to allow me to move my limestone up the pyramid track later on. And now let's go ahead and perform the action that's on this action tile. So we get to move my next mummy into the active area on its sarcophagus side. All right, so that's the first move. And then I get to choose to either move my priestess up the temple and offer a basket, or just obtain a craft from the market. And since I don't have any crafts yet, I'd rather play my priestess when I have a full basket. So let's go ahead and get one instead. And of course, I forgot to move these over. I'm supposed to do that at the end of each turn, but I don't think it matters much in the solo mode. And then we'll just go ahead and draw one from the bag. Now I'm looking at the bottom ones since they correspond to the level 1 row that these will be placed on. So these are going to give me a chance to move up a space in the obelisk. But this one is going to give me some pyramid actions. Let's get this one. All right, so that's 1 fish. All right, I'll place it here. And I'll fill up my basket. All right, it's ready for an offering next time. And now I have to pay the fish for the craft that I wanted. So now I'm only down to 2 fish. All right, let's replenish the craft market this time. And now that I've completed all of my actions this turn, let's go ahead and take this one up to the discard pile. And that's the end of my turn. All right, it's back to Imhotep. So he's going to specialize and move up a scarab. So which one will he choose to move up first? Typically, he will move the one that has the scarab furthest along the track. But since they are tied, he will just go with the top one. So this one moves over, and this scarab. And now he'll perform this action, which is to gain a papyrus and embalm a mummy. Let's start with the papyrus. And he's always going to pick the cheapest papyrus that he can complete his drawing. However, since he doesn't have any papyrus, he's just going to want to block mine instead. And remember, mine has a symbol. So he will take the one that I wanted instead. And if there were 2 of them, he would just go for the cheapest one. So I could have completed this, and I could have gotten a bonus feather, but now he's got it, and he will place it here. All right, let's go ahead and place these back. And draw the next one and place it here. And none of these match my drawing, to my luck. So he's basically totally blocked me. All right, this next action is going to be to embalm one of his mummies. So let's go ahead and get this mummy flipped over to the sarcophagus side. And that is the end of his turn. For my next action, I'm going to go ahead and take a tablet first. All right, we'll take this back. Now let's go ahead and replenish the tablet market. So because I took this, I'm going to go ahead and get a papyrus. All right, now I would have spent heck on this, but Imhotep took it from me. So I think I'm going to go ahead and go with this free one. Besides, I can take this one later, which would match the symbol to this one. So I'll go ahead and get this one for free. So now I have to pay a hecka. But I'll get some later. All right, let's go ahead and place this papyrus. All right, now I'll refill the market. And I also have to pay a fish for taking the tablet from that spot. All right, and now it's back to the bot. Let's go ahead and see what he's got. Oh, that rhymed. Well, he's got 3 more moves left. Okay, so he's going to get one of those tablets back to his board. And remember, depending on which location that tablet is selected, that's the action bonus he will perform from this tile. And he's looking for a tablet that matches this symbol. And remember, if he can't find one, he's going to try to match the one that I want. All right, there's one with the symbol. So let's go ahead and move these down. And look, there's that tablet that matches mine. It's getting cheaper. Now it's only 1 fish. Now let's go ahead and take this back. Always placing them from left to right. So this order does matter when you're placing them for the bot, but you don't have to worry about yours. Now that the symbol from his new tablet matches the symbol on his track, he will get to move his counter over 1 space, triggering the added Scarab action. Basically, he gets to move up one of his Scarabs from any one of his tracks. In this case, Imhotep prefers the one that is furthest behind. And because there are 3 of them that are tied, he will choose the top one instead. Now, because he took the tile in the 3rd slot, he's going to take this action, which is to move 1 boat and activate. So Imhotep always wants to move his boat that is furthest out along the river first. In this case, this one. Now instead, he could use his only movement to move one of these boats into this city, and he could activate that city. However, he will always prefer to move his furthest boat first, even if that move doesn't end up on a city. So we'll go ahead and just move this boat 1 space, but because he's still in the river, he activates this boat for 1 point. And that's the end of his turn. All right, now it's back to me. Now I can either get one of my tiles back or I can specialize. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and get a tile back, but I need to find this symbol. That symbol is one of the ones that the bot needs anyway, so I know he's going to grab that one next, which means he's going to make it cheaper. So maybe I should wait for him to take that one, and then I can get it much cheaper. So I'm just going to go ahead and advance my apprentice instead. All right, so that's going to cost me 1 fish for moving over my apprentice. Let's move my Scarab up 1 space. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and take the Great Pyramid track 2 spaces. And we're going to go ahead and move up the Great Pyramid track. So that's going to be 1, 2, and now it's going to allow me to build. And I'm going to go ahead and get points at the end of the era. All right, so now I can't use these because I haven't finished building the first level. So the only option I have is I'm going to go ahead and get some resources. I'm going to get a fish and I'm going to get a hecka. And now the first level is built. And if Imhotep wants to build, it's going to have to come from the level 2 stack. And he would start from the corner and work his way around clockwise until he finds an empty space to build on. Obviously, it'll be the top corner because nothing's been built yet. All right, so now let's go ahead and get some resources. 1 fish and 1 hecka. All right, it's back to Imhotep. All right, he's either going to get a tablet or he's going to specialize. And I'm hoping he gets a tablet, so it'll make my other tablet that I want cheaper. All right, it's going to be that tablet. So remember, he's going to want the symbol right here. He's going to want that duck. let's see what he can get. All right, so this is the cheapest one out of all of them. So he's going to get this one because it matches the symbol that he wants. Now, he doesn't get fish. Remember, he doesn't play these actions. He's going to rely on his action tile. So let's go ahead and place it on his board. And remember, because it matches the symbol, he gets to move one more space over on his track, which is going to give him a point. And remember, because he took it from the first slot on the tile market, he's going to take the action from his tile here, which is to get a papyrus. So let's go ahead and give him his point. Now it's time to get him his papyrus. And he's going to want that matching symbol to try to complete that drawing that he has down already in his board. Or he'll want to take a papyrus that would match one of mine. And sure enough, the cheapest one matches the symbol to his already placed papyrus. So he'll go ahead and get that one. All right, let's go ahead and add another one. And that's going to be the end of his turn. All right, it's back to me. And I'm going to look for a tablet that matches the symbol on my track. And of course, I forgot to reset the market again. Let's go ahead and bring these down. All right, so this symbol, it matches the one on my track. So I'm going to take this tablet. And I'll also get a choice of one of these. So let's go ahead and take this one. And let me reset this before I forget. All right, so let's go ahead and place it here. And now I get to move my counter up one on the space. And I get a point. Finally, get a point. And now I'll go ahead and perform the priestess, which I get from this action. So let's go ahead and move my priestess up one space. So now I'm definitely more inclined to move this craft offering out to the temple. And that's the end of my turn. All right, it's Imhotep's last turn of this first era. So I'm pretty sure he's going to specialize since that's his last action. And sure enough, he's going to specialize and move one of his scarabs. All right, let's move him over. And now it's getting a little crowded. And then let's go ahead and move this over. And now he's going to perform one boat action and activate two boats. Since he only has one movement and he always moves the furthest boat, we will move this one into the city. Next, we will activate the city, and he will grab this contract. Next, he's going to gain that city benefit, which is going to allow him to move his orb up one space on the obelisk, which then gets him 2 hearts. And now we have to move down this arrow to the next section. And now let's do his second activation. But because he doesn't have any other boats in his city, I'll just give him the activation for this one boat. Now, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below, but I believe this is how you would do it. At any rate, it says that if he can't enter a city, he's just going to get a point from a boat. So regardless of whether it's from this one or the ones from the back, he still gets 1 point for that second activation. All right, it's back to me. And obviously the only turn I have left is to gain another action tile. And I'm going to look for this symbol, which is this duck. So let's see if I can find that one. Now there are 2. You got this one or this one. The only reason I want to take this one is because there's some options, but I'd rather keep my fish because the next round is going to get a little expensive. So we'll just go ahead and get this one, and I'll take the boat action. All right, let's refill the market. All right, so this goes here, and because it matches the symbol on the track, I get to move up one of my counter spaces, and now I get a scarab. Which means I get to increase any one of my scarabs from any one of the tracks. And because I feel like I'm still a little behind on the pyramid track, I really need to get this one going. Now I need to make sure I take this next action of my bonus action. So I decided to go ahead and take the action to move one of my boats. So let's go ahead and move this one because it'll get me 2 fish during the harvest period. This is the end of my turn. And that is the end of the era. So we move on to the harvest where we reap what we sow. And I'm probably going to continue this recording tomorrow since it's kind of late. So you may see some differences in lighting. But this game does take some time and that's why I wanted to go ahead and get started. All right, so we'll continue in a little bit. All right, today is a new day and we're going to go ahead and get started with the harvest of Era 1. But before we do, I realized today that I made a couple of errors that I'd like to go ahead and correct. Let's start with the fact that the scoring track is counterclockwise, not clockwise. So let's correct the counters. So I'm still at 11 points, and Imhotep is still at 14. The second thing is that these red spot rewards on the obelisk are not hearts. These are points. And these get rewarded during the harvest phase. So we'll get back to these in a bit. Let's go ahead and move these back 2 spaces each. There is a lot going on in this game, so I apologize for any of the errors, but hopefully you're getting a good general idea of how to play the solo mode. Alright, it's time to move on to the harvest phase for the first era. So let's start by counting the papyrus to gain some feathers. So I have 2 papyrus, and since my drawings didn't match, I only get 2 feathers. And then we just go ahead and roll these up and place them in our discard space here. And now let's check on Imhotep. Now he has 2, and because his drawings matched, he gains a bonus feather. So now he has 3. And now he's tied me. And then let's go ahead and roll up the papyrus tiles onto the discard pile. And now you can use these in case you place any of your permissions into this particular objectives. Next is going to be the dual track. So there's 7 points between the bot, and there's 8 points between mine. So again, we said 8 for me. Now I'm down to 3. And 7 for Imhotep. So now he's down to 7. Next, we're going to go with the contracts. And I have met each one of these conditions. So I do have 2 and 3 boats moved out of the starting position in the river. And I do have one of my Sphinx out onto the main board. So that gives me a total of 4 points. And as for Imhotep, he has 2 contracts. He doesn't have to meet the conditions. However, he only gets to flip the contract that corresponds to the current era. So because it's era 1, he's only going to flip this contract that has a value of 1. If it was era 2, he would flip this one. But for now, he gets 1 point for the flipped contract. Next, we're going to go to the necropolis area and score for any sarcophagus. And in this case, it's just Imhotep. He has his located under era 1 column. This allows him to score from any mastaba tiles that intersect his sarcophagus. And in this case, he gets 2 points from this tile, but no points from this one. So he just gets 2 points. Next, we're going to go to the obelisk. So each of us gets 2 points. And lastly, we're going to go ahead and score the pyramids. We'll start with the Great Pyramids first. And we both reached or passed this base, so each of us is going to get 1 point. Next, we're going to go ahead and score from the Queen's Pyramid. And this is why you want to get your permissions out early, because you get to score from each of these tiles during each harvest. I don't have any, so I don't score. Now, for Imhotep, it's easy. You don't have to worry about whether he has met any of the objectives. As long as he has a permission out for any of these sites, he scores 4 points for each permission. So in this case, he just scores the 4 points. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the flood phase of era 2 next. So this is era 2 flood phase. First thing we do is move the narrator from era 1 to era 2. Next, we're going to go and receive our resources. And there's a couple of places you can get your resources from. The first one is over here on the river. You gain a fish for every boat that reaches this symbol here. So I'm going to go ahead and get 1 fish. However, the bot does not receive any fish. I also passed this one, so that means I'm going to get 2 more. So that's going to give me 3 fish altogether. I would get 1 from the obelisk, and depending on what level I reached, I would get a Heka. Unfortunately, I did not advance that far, and the bot does not receive any Heka anyway. Next, we're going to go ahead and receive our 6th apprentice back from the House of Life. And then we're going to go ahead and move down each of the neutral apprentices, 1 space. Then we're going to need to refill all of the empty contract spaces from the river, but they will need to be from the contracts that have a value of 2 since we're going into era 2. If it was era 3, then we would refill the value 3 contracts. And then because Imhotep is leading, he's going to go ahead and stay in first place, and I'll stay in second place in turn order. And finally, for the solo mode, we get to reshuffle the solo action tiles and place them to the side of the board. All right, we are now into our first turn of Era 2, and we're going to go ahead and proceed with our first actions. And of course, as we mentioned, Imhotep is first player, so he will go first. All right, this one says he's going to want to get a tablet. However, he already has all his action tiles, so he can't play that one. Let's go ahead and flip this one over and place it underneath, and we're going to go for another one. Okay, this time he's going to place one of his apprentice out onto the House of Life. As we mentioned, we always go from left to right, so we're going to select the first one. All right, again, he normally would go wherever my meeples are placed, but I haven't sent any out yet, so he will place it onto an empty space where one of his scarabs is furthest ahead. Of course, most of these are furthest ahead, except this one. So in that case, he will just go to the top empty space instead. All right, so now he's going to play from this tablet. So this one says he's going to move up twice up the Great Pyramid track, since he doesn't have any of the permissions. And then he'll do a mummy action. So now he's reached the hammer icon, which means he's going to build. Now there's no more from level 1 pieces, so he's going to move on to level 2. And then he always goes from the right corner and works his way around clockwise until he reaches an empty spot where he can build. So this is the first one for the level 2. So he's going to place it here. Now he doesn't get any Heka, but he does block me. So we now move on to the next action, which is to embalm a mummy. So normally he would just place another one, but instead, because he already has one out, he's going to go ahead and go straight to placing one out to the necropolis area. Okay. So in order to know which area he will place it, we will have to roll the solo die. So it looks like it will be space 1, which is this area here. And because it's era number 2, you'll place it here. Now he's going to gain 4 hearts. He doesn't worry about the Mastaba tiles bonus actions. Only the players do, but not Imhotep. All right, he has completed his actions. We're now going to place the tablet on the discard pile. And that is the end of his turn. All right, it's now my turn. And I really need to start moving up the pyramid tracks. But let's go ahead and focus on getting some more papyrus, because there's a contract out there that I really want. So let's go ahead and get this apprentice out there. And here's some more ways to get papyrus. So I'd rather just spend the fish and start to increase more papyrus actions. And now I'm going to go ahead and get a papyrus thanks to this action tile. And I think I'm going to go with this free one. Besides, there's another one I could match this symbol to. I just need to refill the papyrus market. So that space is free to place. And my next action is going to be to move one of the boats and activate a boat. So based on a couple of options here, I really like this one, because I just need 5 papyrus. And I can get a movement on the pyramid, thanks to the city benefit. And this one looks really easy because you have to reach these markers to be able to complete this contract. Now, fortunately, I have 2 of them that have already passed each marker, so I have met that condition already. But let's go ahead and get this one out to the city. So there's my 1 movement, and I also get 1 activation. So I will activate this city. So now I get to take this contract, and then activate the city bonus tile and move my limestone block. And now I get to build on the pyramid. Now, which one do I want to go for? Let's go for the feather and fish. All right, so now I get 1 fish and 1 feather. Now, unfortunately, I will have to move up my boat to the next section of the river, which I already have a boat, so that's going to force my boat to go backwards 1 space. However, I still think it's worth it, because I really wanted the contract. All right, so now I just need to take my tablet back to the discard pile. And that's the end of my turn. All right, it's now back to Imhotep. And for his next action is going to be, okay, so the very same apprentice that he just placed out into the House of Life, he is now going to specialize. Now he's going to time in the Scarab space. And then he's going to do two things. He's going to move up the Great Pyramid because he doesn't have any permissions. And then he's also going to obtain a favor of Khufu. All right, so let's go ahead and move his limestone block up twice. And now he gets to pick one of these favors. And the one that Imhotep always chooses is to advance his feather. So now he's tied with me. And that's the end of his turn. All right, the turn is back to me. And I'm thinking, let's go ahead and place my apprentice while it's still free on some of these spaces. I need to start considering these Sphinx actions since I'm going to start to bring some of those out. And it's free, so we'll go ahead and place it there. All right, so for my first move is to carve a Sphinx. So I'll just move it from the reserve to the active area. And then next I get to move a priestess. Oops. Or I could perform an offering. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that because I'll get to move on the pyramid track. All right, so I can either move this priestess up to the second room, which offers more hearts, fish, and feather, or I can move another one of my priestess to this spot and then activate it. But I think I'm going to go ahead and just move this one up to the next level. And now I can go ahead and provide an offering. So first I'll set this basket aside for now. And because my craft is in level 1, I only get the reward from the level 1 on this craft. In this case, it's going to be to move a limestone. And if it was in level 2, I could choose both. But for now, let's go ahead and move this full basket over to the temple. And now I get to decide whether I want to place it on this side or I get to place it on this side. It just depends on what I need. And I think I need more hearts because I'm a little bit behind. And I'm going to go with the 2 hearts. And then I get to move up one in the obelisk. So I'm going to go ahead and place it here. Now she gets to lay down to remind me that I've already delivered. And I get to move up one space on the obelisk. So now during the flood, I will get another Heka. And I get the 2 hearts. 1, 2. Now I'm a little bit closer. All right, and now I get the benefit from my offering, which is to perform a limestone move up one of the pyramid tracks. And it's going to be the Great Pyramid since I don't have any permissions. And there you go. Now I will get 2 points during the harvest. All right, and then we flip this craft over to indicate that it has been offered. And there are some contracts out there that give you points for having different kinds. Like this contract says that if you have 5 different kinds, you can get 2 points. All right, we are done with our turn now. So we just need to place this tablet back to the discard pile. All right, it's back to Imhotep. So we're going to go ahead and see what his next action will be. And it will be to gain a tablet. And he'll be able to gain a tablet because he has an empty spot. So now we're going to see which kind of tablet he wants based on what is on this next symbol on his track. Which in this case, it's a squiggly lines. And if he can't find that one, remember that he will try to find one that blocks me. And guess what? He's got one right here. This symbol matches, so now he moves up one more space on his track. And that's going to give him an immediate point. So let's go ahead and give him his point. All right, now we're going to refill the market. And because he took that tile from the 4th spot, he's going to be able to move his limestone block 2 spaces up the Great Pyramid track since he doesn't have any permissions. All right, let's go ahead and move his 2 spots. And he passed the hammer, which means he's going to build. And he's going to grab the next one from the level 2 stack. And he's going to go clockwise, starting from the corner, which in this case is going to be a heart. And he's also going to get feathers as well. So let's give him his feather. And now his heart. And that's the end of his turn. All right, it's back to me. And I'm going to get another tablet. All right, and I want this one right here because I'm thinking of getting more of my priestess out into the temple. Besides, that symbol matches my next one on the track. So now that they match, we're going to go ahead and move my counter up one more space. And that's going to give me 1 point. And now I get to perform one of the 2 actions from here. And I think I'm going to go with a boat action. I'm going to move this one into this city, and that way I can go for this contract next time. All right, let's go ahead and refill the tablet market. And now we're down to one more, and next time we're going to reshuffle all of those. All right, let's see what Imhotep is going to play next. All right, so he's going to, nope, he doesn't have an apprentice to specialize. So we're going to go ahead and put this one to the bottom. And let's go ahead and try again. All right, this time he wants to place an apprentice out to the House of Life. Again, we go from the furthest one left. So we're going to go ahead and move this one. And now I think I'm going to start to tilt these tablets so that way I'm not confused as to which one I have to play next. And of course, this is optional. And now he gets to pick a spot to place his apprentice. He's always going to want to go to a space where one of my meeples is on. And since there's two of them, the tiebreaker is he will choose the row that has the scarabs moved furthest along the track. In this case, this one is furthest along between the two. So he's going to place it in this space with mine. And now let's go ahead and take his action from the next tablet, the one that I had tilted. So the first thing he's going to do is he's going to ignore the fish, but he's going to move 2 boats and get 1 activation. All right, he always wants to move the furthest boat first, and he would prefer to move into a city over just moving through the river. So we'll go ahead and choose to move him into this city. And he has 1 more movement, and he again would prefer to move into a city if he can. So this one will move into this city. He doesn't activate that one. He activates the first one. He always prefers to activate his furthest boat. And now let's go ahead and get him his contract. Because they're both value 2, he always picks the one on the left. So he's going to take this one. And then he gets to activate the city bonus, which gives him a papyrus. Now, since Imhotep doesn't have any papyrus on his board right now, his next priority will be to gain a papyrus that matches my drawing, which is this one. So the cheapest one that'll block me is this one right here. So that's the one he takes. Now that he's advanced his boat and finished activating his city, we complete his boat movements by placing it forward onto the river. And of course, this one here is now ready to be activated later. Now let's refill the papyrus market. And now that he's completed his actions, we're going to go ahead and take this tablet to the discard pile. And that is the end of his turn. All right, and now it's back to me. And I'm going to go ahead and get another tablet. And I'm going to take this tablet because it matches the symbol that's on my track. And I'll get a fish. And now I get a choice of papyrus or Heka. And since the symbols match, I get to move my counter up 1 space on my track. And now I get 1 more point. All right, I'm going to choose to go ahead and get a papyrus since I just need 2 more to meet the contract. And since none of these match the one I have, I'll just go ahead and take the free one. All right, let's move these aside. And it looks like this one would match. And it's free. So I'll take that one next time. All right, here we go. We're going to go ahead and spend 1 Heka for this space. There we go. And I also get my fish from taking that tablet in that space. All right, and now it's time to reset the market. All right, now that it's empty, we're going to go ahead and reshuffle this stack. And that's the end of my turn. All right, it's back to Imhotep. Let's see what he's going to do next. All right, he's going to go ahead and place his last apprentice out into the House of Life. Now, which one is he going to place? All right, he's always going to favor the 1 space that has my meeple on, which is this one right here. And there you go. And now we're going to go ahead and play the tablet. He's going to get a heart. So let's give him his heart now. And he's crossed this threshold. So he's going to get closer to that feather. Remember, once they cross, he starts earning points instead of losing them. All right, his next action is going to be to make an offering. Remember, he doesn't do the bottom. He always just does the top one. All right, so let's go ahead and move one of the priestess and deliver an offering to the temple. Now, Imhotep always moves his most advanced priestess first. In this case, he doesn't have any, so he's just going to advance the first one. Now, if he was going to advance again, he would just continue to advance the one that's furthest out. If he has extra moves, then he'll move the second one, and so on. And usually he can get extra steps from this Scarab. Now, he's going to deliver this basket, but we're going to go ahead and set it aside. And because this is the first level, then he only activates the first one. And in this case, it's just 1 point. So let's go ahead and give him his point. And now let's go ahead and flip this one over. And now we get to deliver his full basket. All right, now typically, you and I could either choose one of the temples to place this basket, but for Imhotep, he uses his die instead. This is going to help him determine which column he's going to place it in. So let's go ahead and roll it. And it's going to be the number 1. So this number 1 over here. So he's going to place it on 2 hearts. And now we lay this priestess down since he's already delivered. So let's go ahead and give him his 2 hearts. All right, so now that he's completed his actions, let's go ahead and take this tablet to the discard pile. And that's the end of his turn. All right, it's back to me. So I've decided to place this one out. Okay, I like this one so that I can keep moving up the pyramid tracks. And it's free. All right, so now for my first turn, I'm going to go ahead and get 2 hearts. And since I already have a Sphinx carved, I'll just go ahead and place that one out to the main board. And now I can only choose a level 1 space for my Sphinx since my Scarab is only up to level 1, which is why I wanted to continue to specialize more on this track. And this spot rewards me a Khufu permission so that I can move up 1 space on the Queen's Pyramid track, or I can just go with Great Pyramid track if I want. We'll just put it on the side for now to remind me that I'm still in the middle of play. So first I'll activate one of my permissions of Khufu so I can finally be on that track. I just need 1 more and I can activate the build action. And now let's go ahead and take this tile back up to the discard pile. All right, and that's the end of my turn. All right, it's back to Imhotep, and let's see what he's going to do next. All right, he's going to take a tablet. And he could definitely do that since he's got spaces available. So let's go ahead and see which one he's going to take. Now, he's looking for this symbol right here. If he doesn't get it, remember, he's going to try to block mine. All right, here we go. And here's the symbol he's been looking for. All right, so we're going to go ahead and place it here. And now because it matches, guess what? He's going to move the counter. And that one is going to allow him to move up one of his scarabs on a track. Now the scarab he's going to want is the one that's furthest behind. So the one furthest behind is this one. And remember, instead of doing these moves, now because he took the second tile, he's going to move up the Great Pyramid track since he doesn't have a permission. And that's going to give him 8 points at the end of this era. And now let's go ahead and refill the market. And now it's back to me. All right, I see a tablet that matches this symbol. So if I get it, it's going to give me a scarab. And that's what I've been waiting for. So let's go ahead and grab it and place it on my last space. There we go. All right, now I get to move my counter. And now I get to choose a scarab to move up one of my tracks. Now keep in mind that the order that I'm doing things is my choice, but you can do them in any order. I just happen to do it this way. It's more convenient for me while I'm filming, but in other plays, I may be moving them differently in different orders. And I think that's the best part about this game, but more about that in final thoughts. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and choose that scarab. Because remember, one of my objectives and contracts is to get at least 5 papyrus. Because remember, I do have an objective that can give me points for papyrus, but I also have a contract that if I get at least 5 papyrus, I'm going to get some points. And I'm really close to getting it. All right, so that was just from my bonus. Let's go ahead and refill the market. Oh, and this is for that bonus action I get for taking that tablet. So let's go with moving up the pyramid track. Now I get to build over here. So there's only one left. I'll get a fish and I'll get a heart. There we go. And we finished this level. Now remember, I had to pay a fish for the tablet I got. But I get a bonus from this pyramid, so I get another fish back. So it just stays at 7. And I also get a heart. All right, so for now, I'm a little closer. So that's the end of my turn. All right, now it's back to Imhotep. And he's going to start to specialize. He's got 2 to choose from. He wants the one that has the most advanced Scarab. But since they are both tied, we'll go with the one at the top. So we're going to go ahead and move him over here. And that will move him to the next level. And now he's going to perform this action. So that means he's going to get a Papyrus. And he's also going to perform a mummy action. So let's start with the Papyrus first. And he's going to want the other side of this drawing. So if he can't get that one, he's going to look for the one I want. But none of these match either one of ours, so he'll just simply take the cheapest one. All right, now let's go ahead and refill the market. Now, he is supposed to be performing a Funerary Rite action and sending out his sarcophagus. However, he doesn't have any available sarcophagus, so he's forced to have to just take an embalm action instead. And now, next time he does this action, he will go ahead and perform that Funerary Rite. And that's it for his turn. All right, it's back to me. And obviously, I already have all my tiles built, so the next actions are basically just going to be to specialize. So let's see which one I want to do first. All right, let's go ahead and go with the top one. And that's going to cost me 1 fish. And then I'm going to be able to move my Scarab down another space. And I get 2 movements up the pyramid tracks. And I'm going to go ahead and place another permission. Now that I have a Khufu permission, I'll go down this track and activate this action to build a Queen's Pyramid. And I've been building up those papyrus, so I'm going to go ahead and go here first. And now I get to place a level 3 piece and place it on this pyramid. And once it's completely built, we will no longer be able to place any more permissions here. All right, and now for my second move, I will just move the limestone on this track. And now it's back to Imhotep. All right, it's back to Imhotep. Let's see what he's going to do next. All right, he's going to get another tablet. And yes, he can get another tablet since he has 1 available space. So let's see, he's going to be looking for this symbol next. And sure enough, it's the second one from the bottom that matches that symbol. And since it was the second to the bottom space, he gets this bonus action, which is to move a pyramid track. Since he doesn't have a permission, it will be the Great Pyramids. And now he's going to build. So he's going to start the 3rd level. So he gets 1 from the top of this stack. Remember, he wants to build on an empty space. So he starts looking on the right upper corner and works his way around clockwise. He ignores the Heka, but he will get a heart. So let's go ahead and give him his heart. Now he's very close to that feather. He will start racking up points once they cross. Now let's go ahead and refill the market. And now the tablet he's got does match the next symbol on his track. So he's going to go ahead and move this over 1 space. And he's going to get a point. And that's the end of his turn. All right, it's back to me. So I'm going to go ahead and specialize. All right, I like this one because I get the papyrus and I get to finally perform a Funerary Rite action. So I'll go ahead and move it over. And that's going to be 1 fish. And now my Scarab gets to move in this spot. So I'll be able to do both of these actions next. And I'm looking for a papyrus that can complete that drawing. If I do it now, it's going to cost me 2 Heka, and I only have 1. So I think I'm going to do a Funerary Rite action first, and then we'll go back to getting a papyrus. Now, I can only place my sarcophagus on a level 1 area, and that's because that's what my Scarab allows me to do. So there's a level 1, but I can't place it here because Imhotep's sarcophagus is right there. So I have no choice but to place it onto this space, here. Still, it's going to give me 2 Heka, and it's going to give me a heart. Now remember, because I'm in level 1 space, I only get to choose 1 activation from either one of these 2 Mustaba tiles. If I had placed a level 2, I would get 2 activations from either one of these that intersect my sarcophagus, and so on. Since I'm in level 1, I only have 1 activation, but I get to choose to activate either one of these Mustaba tiles. And I think I'm going to go with this one, since it'll allow me to move up a space on the obelisk. and I'll be able to get some income there as well. First, I'll get my heart, and now my 2 Heka. And I also get to move up the obelisk 1 space. And now you see this symbol? It means I'll be able to gain rewards from the chosen deity at the top of the temple. Which means I'll be able to do 1 heart and 1 feather. So let's go ahead and get 1 feather. And I get 1 heart. And I just needed 1 more to pass this one. Now it's time to pick my papyrus. And I'm going to go with the one that's free, since none of these match my drawing. And now I can't afford to pay the 2 Heka that it costs, thanks to that Funerary Rite action. Actually, let me go ahead and fill this stack up again. Let's go ahead and refill the market. And that is the end of my turn. Alright, it is now time for Imhotep's final turn of Era 2. Let's see what he's got. And obviously, he's going to move his last apprentice over to the moon side. That means he's going to move his Scarab over here. And now he's going to perform these 2 actions. Let's go ahead and give him his craft. And when he chooses a craft, remember that he wants a craft that doesn't match the one that he already has on the board. He likes to have different types. And he's always going to purchase the one that is the cheapest. So we will go with this one, because it's free. Now let's go ahead and refill the market. Alright, he's going to pick this spot here. Now for his second action, it's going to send a Sphinx out to the main board. But since he doesn't have any, he won't be able to perform the action. Instead, he'll just simply move his Sphinx over to the active area. And that's the end of his turn. Alright, it's time for my final turn of Era 2. And of course, my last action will be to specialize, since that's my last option. So I have no choice. I have to move this one. Now, if I didn't have any fish, then I could still move it here. I just wouldn't be able to play any actions for my Scarab. I would simply take 3 fish instead. But fortunately for me, I do have fish, so I'll go ahead and pay my 2 fish. And now I'm down to 3. And I can go ahead and move this over. I won't play this one since I don't have a Sphinx on my active side. So I'm just going to go ahead and carve my Sphinx and then gain a craft. So I activate my Sphinx. Now I'm going to move and obtain a craft on my second action. And right now I can only place a craft on my level 1 area. So I'll only be able to activate the level 1 rewards from these crafts. Like this one here that provides me a papyrus. And the craft is free. This one does cost 1 fish, but I'll get 2 hearts. So that's not bad. But this one, it's 2 fish. But it will get me my last permission out. So let's go ahead and get this one. Alright, I'll go ahead and set the basket aside for now and place this one right here. And there we go, my second craft. And now let's pay for the craft. That was 2 fish, so now I'm down to just 1. Let's go ahead and refill the market. And that is the end of my turn. And now we're going to move on to Era 2 Harvest Phase. Alright, we have now reached the Harvest Phase of Era 2. And we're going to start by rewarding the Papyrus. Imhotep will only gain 2 feather since his drawings do not match. Let's roll these up and place them on the discard pile. Next, I have 3 papyrus on my board. So I'll get 3 feathers. Alright, let's roll these up. Next, we're going to go to the Duat and see how many points we're going to lose. Although, not as many as the first era, for sure. And as you can see, the bot just loses 1 because of this gap between his heart and his feather. Whereas I'm going to lose 3 points. So it was really close to crossing this one. I just needed 1 more heart. So the bot only loses 1 point and I lose 3. Next, we're going to go ahead and count the contracts. Let's go ahead and do Imhotep's first. And because it's Era 2, he's going to flip both of these. So now he's got 5 points. Now I got to complete my 5 papyrus, so I can go ahead and flip this one. And now I'm going to get 6 points. And now we're going to move on to the necropolis scoring. So Imhotep is going to get from here 2 points. And from here, 1 point. So that's 3. And he's also going to get points from the sarcophagus. 2 points from here. And 0 points from this tile. So he's going to get a total of 5 points. Whereas I just get 2 points, because this one gives me 0. Next, we're going to go to the obelisk. Based on where we're located, Imhotep is going to get 2 points, and I'm going to get 4. And finally, let's go ahead and check the pyramids. Imhotep is going to get 8 points. And I'm going to get 4. And finally, we score each of our permissions that are out in the Queen's Pyramid. Now remember, regardless of where Imhotep places his permission, he always just gets 4 points for each of those that are out. Since he only has 1, he just gets 4 points. I, on the other hand, have to work for it. I have met the 5 papyrus for this objective, but I only get 1 point for every 2. Since I have 5, I get 2 points. And that's the end of the harvest. And now we're going to move on to Era 3. But I'm going to go ahead and have a separate video for that one. For now, I'm going to go ahead and publish this one. So we'll have something to start with, and then we'll go ahead and continue in finishing my next video, which will have the last era and my final thoughts.